Hi, welcome back to another episode of Coldstream Rod Shop. I'm Derek Fraser. In this week's episode, we are going to be getting the 32 5-window coupe ready to ship out. As I said in a previous episode, it's going to go back to the customer. They have new plans for it. Basically, in the state that it's in, it's going to be, the project will be taken from there. Once I know more of the details, I'll let you in on it. And if I get some pictures of what they do with it, I'm certainly going to share. So right now, what I've done, I've actually lifted the body up off the frame. I've got it on jack stands. I didn't go through the trouble of doing a time lapse or anything with it, but she's up on jack stands. I'm actually ready to move the frame out. My intention is to build a dolly for it out of these wheels I got from Princess Auto. I think the folks in the States, you guys would buy them from Harbor Freight or somewhere else. So there's two wheels on the front that'll rotate and two on the back that roll. The customer actually wants me to build something relatively permanent because he has a lot of 32 Ford stuff, and he'll have this shipped back to him. It'll come off of this dolly, then I guess he has other bodies he wants to continue to use it for. So we want something, relatively robust that he can keep on using in the future. So right now I am going to try and roll this frame out without knocking it off of the jack stands. The camera lady is going to record it. Hopefully nothing silly happens here. And then I don't bump anything. So this is the first time I guess the frame has been off of it. We built the body on the frame and it hasn't been out. This is an original frame. It's not been butchered up. It's got the front and rear cross members, and it's got an original complete K member into it. So it's a valuable piece. What the customer wants me to do is to keep this here. I'm gonna basically store it on its side once I get the body on a frame. And then this frame here is he actually owns the 32 Roadster that we have stored in over the other building. So later on in the fall or early winter, I'll start actually building the 32 Roadster on this original frame. So far so good. I have not bumped it or knocked anything out. And there we go. It's off. I did not knock it over. I'm just going to leave that outside. I'm going to work on this dolly today, get it on a dolly, and then move it out of the way, and then I'm going to bring the frame back in. So here is an underneath view of the dolly that I made to go underneath the 5-window. I made it mostly with 1x2 rectangular square tubing, 7-foot piece going down each side, and then there's 3 pieces going flat across the back, one here by the rear kick-up, one further down there, approximately just behind the B pillar, and one way up front there in front of the A pillar. Now underneath those, I don't know if we can see, we'll try zooming. Yeah, I also took some 1x1 square tubing there and stuck it under the sub rails, so it fit between the 1x2. Yeah, there you go there, and the fit between the side rails of the cart, the cross rails, and then it kind of distributes the weight underneath the sub rails. So down front there, I think you can see it as well. There's one there. I'm going to try and get up here and do a front view. I don't have the camera lady right now, so just going to show what we did down front. So there, you can see it a little better there. There's 1x1s. So basically it bridged the gap between 2 bolts, and then it would sit. So this 1x1 here, it's about 18 inches long. It sits on this horizontal 1x2, and then it sits on this vertical 1x2 rail here. So I'm going to set this down here. The front wheels rotate and the back are straight. and we will see how well it moves around the garage. But I think it's actually very rigid right now, so I really don't have any kind of worries about it not being good enough. I've done worse with the 2x4 ones. So here it is. We're doing the final walk around on the 32 Ford 5-window New York Coupe. It's going to be picked up here shortly. One of the last things I needed to do was there's actually a trim piece above the doors. It's kind of like a garnish molding. We don't have the garnish moldings here to fit. They're with the owner. But right above the doors here, there's a piece of metal trim that goes on the wood. All I was asked to do is basically straighten it out, make sure they fit. I put the screws in it and drilled the holes. But as you can see across the other door, it's normally nailed in place. So I'm not going to nail these because the owner will have to take these off and probably get them, walnut blasted or something and do a little bit of body work on them. So they're all in place. We did a quick check on all of the screws, like the ones around the door here. I don't know if you can see it with the light there, but there we go. Made sure that those holes are all tapped or clean and there's no broken screws into them. Most of the garnish molding is actually put in place with wood screws into like little pieces of wood here, so there's not many things we have to go around here. In the back now, the regulator for the rear window, there was one that came with it, but I don't think it's the right one, because as you can see here, there's only 2 holes to mount it, and if you can see on the floor in the back there, that's got 3 holes onto it. So I'm not convinced that that's the right one that goes in there, so I'm sending that back with the car. Maybe the owner has another one, but I couldn't fit it in the car. So we're just going to do a quick run around and just basically make sure I didn't miss anything. But it's going to be picked up here shortly, and we'll videotape it leaving the yard. So there it is, Riding Dirty is taking it off to back to its owner. Anyway, off she goes back to her owner, and that's the end of that one. So that's it. The 32 5-window New York Coupe is on its way back to its owner. A little sad to see it go. We've had basically a 32 5-window coupe in the shop here for at least one for the better part of 2 years. So it kind of feels strange not coming out here and seeing a 32 5-window coupe. But we still have our 32 Ford Roadster. There's a future 32 Ford Roadster coming up that arrived here a while ago, and a 32 sedan kind of queued up in the list of things to do. We're going to start working on the 40 Plymouth, and then later on today, believe it or not, as soon as this one came out, we've got some chassis work coming in here. That's going to be coming in later on today. So that's it for the 32 5-window coupe New York project. We're going to show some clips at the end of this video, basically showing the highlights of the 32 New York coupe and what we did to it along the way, because it's to come a long way since it just left here in that kind of state it was. There's a lot of work that went into the project, and anyways, again, sad to see it go, but looking forward to some new stuff. Anyways, please like, share, tag, and subscribe. I'll see you next week, and everybody take care. Welcome back to Coldstream Rod Shop. I'm Derek Fraser. In this episode, we're going to start working on the second 5-window coupe. Not sure how to distinguish them. I guess we're going to call this the Moncton coupe because that's where it came from, and we'll call this one the New York coupe because that's where it came from. The first step is basically going to clear all of the parts out, take a better look of what we've got. Once I get everything all cleared out of it, what I'll be doing is installing, I'm going to have to use our 5-window, or our firewall, that is, from our 32 Ford Roadster, position it in here, and then basically bring the cowl up square with that. That's the first step on it from reconstruction. So in this episode, I'm going to go as far as I can over the next week and show you what we've done with it, and move this project along. Went to the post office today and we have all of our sub-rail parts. These are from another manufacturer. I think they were made quite some time ago. So they all come in pieces. This is the part that goes underneath the door. There's a section that goes up over the back. I'm going to have to basically splice them together. But I now have a good set of side sub-rails to go in here. I mentioned a couple times in the last video I was going to cut the old sub-rails out. Haven't done that. Going to do that now, and then start to work to put the sub-rails in underneath the 5-window coupe. In the last episode, I put together the sub-rails and got the cross pieces ready here. So I'm at the stage now where I need to install those cross pieces. I've been working away on this. The two cross members are in right now. There was quite a bit of restoration I had to do to it. Some of the lips were rotted off. I had to weld pieces onto it. I have an original floor piece here for a 32 Ford. It's just basically trimmed and put into place because the sub-rails themselves, the reproduction ones, are a little wider, so I had to take about 1/8 of an inch off all the way around so they, well, on the side so they'd fit in. As you can see, I've got my head in the door here. So I've started the process of putting the door on and fitting it, and basically trying to align the body to see where the A-pillars fit up and down. So here we are a couple days later. Been at this for quite a bit. As you can see right now, I put the 1x1 steel tubing in place and braced the B-pillars where I thought they would be, and also over here the A-pillars, the bottoms of the A-pillars here were shot. The new A-pillars are in. Everything lines up to the original studs that's welded in place right now, but they're exactly where the original studs were. The body bolt hole lines up. The A-pillar is in alignment with the A-pillar foot, and it's at the right height. Both doors right now swing and they have an even gap along the bottom, so we're good there. One of the issues with these were doors off of a late 5-window. Apparently, according to the owner, this is a early 5-window in production. So the doors fit pretty good, and the body had a lot of damage to it. So I've been able to bring the B-pillar out to match the door, but I also think the B-pillar is bent here, so I'm going to have to hook up some sort of a hydraulics and try and bend it back out a little bit. Welcome to episode 100. Didn't think we'd make it this far, but we're still going with it. So this is number 100. In this episode, we're going to keep on working on the New York 5-window coupe. In the last episode, I tied in the A-pillars and I tacked in the B-pillars. I'm going to go through this episode, and this might be an episode where I struggle with some of this stuff because the hard part is actually getting those B-pillars so they're perfect where they are. So here's the B-pillar correction. I struggle with a number of different ways of how to fix it, whether I pie cut it and just bent it or come along or whatever. Ultimately, I messed around all day here and came up with this brace system where I've got a plate in the top here and a bolt going across so that when I when we put pressure here, the bolt doesn't dig into sheet metal, it distributes the weight. It's just 1x1 steel tubing and a bottle jack. What I did before I started, I took a measurement from this point, like from there to here, and I knew I had to come out about 1/4 of an inch or so. So basically applied pressure on the jack, took it all off, checked it, kept going, and basically inched my way about 1/16 of an inch at a time. You have to overbend it, but then it springs back. So it took about 4 attempts, maybe 5 attempts to finally get it to where it is. So right now I'm at the stage of basically taking this off for the last time. I had a plate. I also had a metal plate there to distribute the weight against the wood. A little bit of banging and cracking when it came undone. But essentially we're trying to put the B-pillar back to where it should be. Next up on the 5-window coupe, I'm going to work on doing the fender wells on each side. This week's episode only have enough time to basically put one of them in. So essentially I have the reproduction wheel well to put in. These are purchased. I'm not going to try and make them. I don't have the equipment or the fine skills yet to make one of these. Hopefully at some point in time I will. But I've used these reproduction ones before and they go in quite well. It's one of the few aftermarket pieces I'm happy with. So right now I'm in the process. I'm going to have to mark this and then time it so that it comes in the right way. And you can see how the welds, some of the welds are from the inside and the outside. I am more than likely going to finish welded on the inside, and I'm probably going to go on the outside just because some of the parent metal is not that great, and I fix any blowholes that whatever I can fix on the original metal. I'll finish that up in the next episode. That weld will show you, and then we'll start working on this side. This side is a lot more challenging because it's in rougher shape. If you can see on the inside here, I'm not sure if the camera lady can show it or not. The actual fender lip is gone as well. You can see light through it. In this episode, we're going to be working on replacing the rear corners of both the 32 5-window coupes. Over here on the New York coupe, I've taken all the bits and pieces out of the back that are rotted the rear pan, and I've begun work here removing this one corner. So I kind of removed most of it here, kind of to where I think the piece will fit. Over here, as in the previous episode, I had made one set of rear corners. I now have 3 complete rear sets. So I've got a spare, and I've got some trial pieces here in case I need to actually cut up and just repair one of the corners, because one of the corners is actually not in bad shape. In this episode, I'm going to start fitting them. So this is this one. This basically is where that piece is going to approximately fit. the sheet metal here up around the corner on both sides. I had to cut away the entire back here of where the drip edge was. I installed one of the drip edges here that I made. I haven't quite welded these in yet, but I also made these. What I'm working on right now is actually the hinge pins. The hinge pin area is basically what we build it up. I'm getting ready to put the hinge pins for the deck lid. So that's a Roadster one, and we can use it on the 5 window. That's what it looks like. So this one's installed. Over here on a New York Coupe, I've got them installed. So as I previously stated, the top section, the 2 screws that go into the hinge pin go through it, and then it locates and gets welded to the floor down here. Just, well, the camera lady will insert a picture, I guess. So they're done now on a New York Coupe. And then over here on the New York Coupe, what I did was I basically made bottoms. I didn't make a full piece here, so the bottoms of the rumbles were gone on this, but the brackets themselves were really decent. I didn't have to cut them out or anything. So essentially just make the bottom half of this, and then I just welded it in place here, and then the same thing across the floor, you know, drilled the 3/16 holes and spot welded it to the floor, just as close to what they would have done with an original one. We're going to work on the New York Coupe, primarily on this section. Last week I made a repair here. There was a really large gash. Kind of successfully did the repair, but I got a lot more distortion going on there than I expected. But also at the same time, there's way more damage than I thought. The panel is actually, it's not attached to the B-pillar at all here. It's actually broken away. So some of that it's pulling here. So what I'm not sure is how I'm going to approach this, whether it's going to be a panel here and a piece here and try and fix stuff up, or actually just try and make a large panel. Either way, I'm going to go for it this week, and we'll have something done. So I've been fooling around with this panel as to what to do. What I'm thinking of doing is actually making a full piece. Passenger side panel. We're supposed to be making a driver side panel, but that's okay. We've got to make it anyways. So here it is. Essentially is going to go right there, like that. Here we have the second panel I made for the driver's side. Same process as before. Bead rolled the bottom here and rolled the edges, tipped the edges over, and then bead rolled this edge and then bent this, and then a bunch of shrinking to get the shape of the panel. So the panel's almost ready to go on the side of the car now. So a little bit more trimming. This panel, I'd put this square patch in here, and I had quite a bit of warpage on the final pass. Was able to actually correct most of it, but what I realized was it's actually too thin, and then this edge here was just, it's basically gone. I'm gonna have to clean the B-pillar up here and probably put some primer or some paint onto it before I weld everything in place, but here's the panel. And that, there, so it's pretty much ready. I'll trim the top here and then I'll cut it out, but the door shuts pretty good right now. The bottom's going to come over a little bit, so that panel is basically ready to weld on the side of the car. So I'm going to carry on with that, get it welded in place and show you the end product. Here we are the next day. I've got the panel welded in. Across the top here, it's all ground out. There's a couple pinholes I got to fill in, touch up, but that's normal. I've taken the fender over there, I've fitted in place, and the bottom part of the quarter panel fits the fender. I do have a little bit of a mismatch between my quarter panel here and the fender lip, but I did have a problem on either end of this when I did the fender lip video. So what I'm going to do is I'm probably just going to make another piece here and transition that right into the bottom quarter panel, because the quarter panel is actually correct. At the end of the last video, I had already installed this quarter panel, and then I was talking about how I installed it, and then I had a slight mismatch between the fender lip that I had put in before and where the quarter panel was. I didn't adjust this quarter panel simply because when I fit the fender to it, this is actually in the right place. So there's a slight misalignment on the edge of the fender lip. And I had the same issue when I did the back corner. Had a really good line in the center of the fender lip, but as it trailed out, it got a little wonky on me. So just gonna fix it. So what I've done, I've actually cut this piece out, which is the part that I didn't like. I probably only needed to fix the bottom part, but I wanted to have a nice smooth piece. And now right now I've made a piece in here. I've got some magnets holding in place. So if I take the magnets off, you can see, so that piece is ready to fit in. And then right here, there was a little triangle piece that I knew was missing from when I put the fender well in. We're going to do all that up. We're going to dolly some of this out. We're going to fit that little triangle piece in, make the quarter panel meet up with the fender well, and fix this. We'll do that before we go on and we do the other quarter panel. As you can see from the time-lapse videos you just saw, I cut out the old piece. Now, I chose to take the whole section out because the edge was gone. There's a couple bullet holes into it, and there was a section here that was stretched quite badly, which led into the belt line. This belt line was damaged quite a bit, but I was actually able to pound it out. I still got a tiny little bit of work to do onto it, but it's got a pretty decent shape and it's pretty sound. So the decision was made to replace the whole panel. There's a few more things to do on the New York Coupe. A lot of the wood has to be replaced, but we made wood for it when we were building the Moncton Coupe. So I won't cover making the wood when I put it in back in this one, but I'll cover installing it. But I think the first thing we're going to attack when we get back on this is across the top of the roof here. There's a lot of dents and there's some cracks and whatnot. I'm going to focus on trying to straighten all of that out, either fix some of the dents or put metal patches in, or not 100% sure what. But anyways, watch along in this video as we go back to working on the New York 5-window coupe. So I decided to work on the passenger side of the 32 5-window coupe roof. So far it looks kind of like what we had to deal with on the Moncton Coupe. There's a lot of rust and kind of repair I'm going to have to do on the underside. I removed the wood above the door, and as you can see, it's there's really not much left of it. So we do have other pieces already made up from when we did the Moncton Coupe. There's a complete set of wood above the doors and wood above the roof. The other thing I started doing a little bit of was I started knocking some of the dents out, and they were pretty deep, so when I knocked them out there was high spots, so I had to do a little bit of heat shrinking onto it. There's still more to do here because I couldn't access it from with the wood in its place, and also I had to do a couple little spot welds here to stitch a little bit of the metal back up. Along the back I had to stitch it a little bit, but I mean there's a nasty hole here that I'm going to have to address. from the time-lapse video, I was working on a whole bunch of different dents here. This whole side here of the top was severely damaged. Even in the pictures we're probably going to insert, I had actually hammered out some of it earlier last year. So there's some significant damage here. There's a big dent here, another big dent here, another one here, and then a hole along the back. So in the time lapse, what you saw me doing was I don't have a planishing hammer. I'm not sure if I explained this earlier on or not, but basically I did have this air chisel with a flat top onto it. I turned the pressure down, and then I used my dolly here and basically from behind just try and worked it as if I had a handheld planishing hammer. And actually it was quite effective of getting some of the dents out. The only thing is that you don't want this on high because you're going to wind up stretching the metal up. You just got to be gentle with it to get some of it out. So that was one thing I used. I also used the hammer and dolly. You saw me use the propane torch to heat the areas up and then basically whack the dent down, the hot metal down, and then kind of dolly it out to try and shrink up those areas, because when there's a large dent there you actually stretch the material. Then when you pop it out you've got like a high crown, so you've got to try and stretch material back as best you can. So I actually used a shrinking hammer with this perforated side to try and help me shrink some of the metal, the hot metal down, and it's actually quite good. I mean, there's always how far do you go with doing a top like this, and basically you got to put perspective on your project. Ultimately, I guess if you wanted it perfect, you would go out and buy all brand new sheet metal, which would probably be a whole new car in my case. Well, we made a little bit of progress on this one front corner here. I was able to knock part of the dent out. I had to do a little bit of welding here because there was actually a crack and a dent and it was stretched. So the welding kind of helped with the shrinking of the stretch part. So I cut away the drip rail with the intention of working on the upper edge, which I'm still ultimately going to work on. So when I cut this away, then I took the door off to get better access. And what I forgot about was this side here is pretty shot. So here it is, the quarter panel's all welded in. As you can see from the time lapse, I finished welded it and ground the weld flush with the original metal. I did a little bit of hammer welding just to finish it off, but I really took my time on this. There was almost no distortion this time around. Luck, skill, not sure which, but I'm going to take it as it is. The hole is now cut out for the so that the hinge will fit in there. At least it was earlier. Yep, there we go. So it fits in there the way it normally would. Just, oh, there's a burr on that. So anyway, all good. Hinges go back in. This whole edge basically was redone, and then I just kept working my way up. So I'm basically up to the top here where I thought I was going to start working on it. Once I took the door off and saw how crusty and bad shape, like, you know, the A-pillar was, I kind of changed gears and decided to focus on basically working on the quarter and cleaning this whole A-pillar up before I work and go up the top. So made a little progress here. The little piece I showed earlier, which was like this was one of my trial pieces. I had to go back and make one to make sure that this end portion here wasn't far enough, and actually played around bead rolling it, shrinking, stretching. Ultimately, I used a piece that that I had before and basically shrunk the inside portion here and stretched the outside portion. So when you have a flat piece like this and you want to make it curved, the outer portion here has to be stretched and the inner portion here has to be shrunk in order to make the curve. So that's all welded in place right now. I'm kind of happy with it. Like when I went around the other places, some of this metal is really thin, so touch it with a mini grinder and you blow a hole. Next thing you know, you're sitting there with the welder stitching up the tiny little holes. In cases where the holes get too big, you got to weld in a patch, but if it's just kind of like a little blowhole or something, you can fix it up. So next step, I'm going to carry on working in behind here I'm going to finish the inside part before I weld this new piece of drip edge on. So I've got that prepped and ready to go on there. I'm going to weld that on last. I'm going to carry on with the inside here. I think if the camera lady goes over from, yeah, it's all cut and ready to weld in. If she goes over to the other side, I think I can show you on the inside what I'm proposing to do. So yeah, I'm basically proposing to put a piece like this in this full length here. I'm more than likely not going to make it the full depth. I'm going to cut here halfway through where the drip rail is, remove that, and then weld a new piece like this in all the way along. Like the other side, we're going to fix the bottom of the quarter panel here. The hole here is definitely going to be next week, but we're going to try and push and get this lower quarter panel done. From the last episode, I had started to make up some of the panels. I won't go over it. I might show tipping one of the edges there, but essentially, you know, I made up the panel, bead rolled this edge. I tipped this edge over and I folded it. And then this edge here, basically, you tip it over once, tip it over once, put the curvature into it, and tip it a second time. So this panel right now is almost ready to go. What's left is basically to trim this edge, fold the bottom piece over, and then put some shape to the bottom of this this body line here. Then I'll have to put a crown into it too. So there's a little more work left to do on this panel, but I'm gonna try and push through it, get the panel done, and then hopefully get it welded on there once it's the right shape. All right, as you can see from the time lapse, I finished making the panel, cut the panel, I rolled the bottom. I had to basically take it over on the bench on my homemade little mandrel, and rounded the edge over, put it through the English wheel and got the crown onto it. And actually, when I went to go put it on, I really didn't have to bend it very much, or even really didn't have to force it any to put it in place with the clips. So right now, everything is welded. Everything is finished ground. I got one tiny little high spot there that I'm gonna, after the video is over, I'll try and I'll level that out. But that's the driver's side quarter panel all put in place. Next up, like I said, I didn't think we'd get to this big gash here. I'm gonna have to basically repair the gash. There's a couple of dents here. And then what I'll do is I will work across the top of the cowl here on the next episode. So that's it for this week. I know it's a little bit of the same of the week before, but there's two sides of the car. They're not always exactly the same. So join us next week. Hopefully you'll like that. And please like, share, tag, and subscribe, and comment. Everybody take care and have a great week. Welcome back to another episode of Coldstream Rod Shop. I'm Derek Fraser. In this week's episode, we're going to keep on working on the 32.5 window coupe. Last week we put the cowl quarter panel on, and the week before the one on the other side, and now we're working up across the top of the cowl itself. If you've noticed, I've took out the 32 firewall that we put in here. That has been in there since actually we assembled the car. That was used to locate the front of the cowl, and I built the car backwards. When I put it on initially, it really needed that firewall to hold things in place. And as I took it out, everything looks good. Everything is the right shape. So we're kind of golden on that. As I said, there was a couple dents here. I already knocked out one of the dents. I've got this gash to replace. And then along here, we've got some rot basically along the firewall band. My plan, I think right now, is to use this, or a piece like this that I made for the front. This is the same bead actually as what I put on the front of the quarter panel, so I'll more than likely make some more of this up, and then I'll be able to cut out whatever piece I need here, and then I'll be able to make this repair along the top of the cowl. The cowl vent itself is pretty much toast. The owner has given me another cowl, which looks like it's salvageable. There's no holes into it. I'm gonna take it apart, cut it out kind of thing, and see what kind of shape it's in. Here we go. Cowl vent's all welded in, as you can see from the time lapse. I finished welding all the way around. I've got it dollied out pretty good. With old metal being welded to old metal, I have a little harder time with that, but it's pretty good now. So the cowl vent works, opens and shuts. There was a couple pinholes down inside the groove here that I also fixed up, and then I just used a little tiny die grinder to kind of dress it up. I mean, ultimately what's going to sit in that groove is you're going to glue in a great big rubber gasket that goes into that groove. But cowl vent's in, works good. Just have to salvage a handle out of the spare parts there, get the spring and the detent hooked up to it. Next up, either going to fix the hole over here, or I'm going to start working on this nice little rot here around the cowl band. As you can see, my wife actually hates me saying that. As you can see, I fixed the bullet hole here. Just opened it up, took a small piece of 18 gauge metal, welded it in place and dressed it off. So now we get the bullet hole fixed up. So here is the first piece welded in across the top, and then I carried on and I welded in just an L-shaped piece like this over here. This one right now is set up for me to weld in, basically to weld in there to patch it. So I'm basically going from this point all the way to here. Last week we were working on the windshield area and the frame. This week we're going to move to the back and we're going to be working on the deck lid. The one area of the biggest concern I had was this lip here where there's 2 or 3 pieces brazed on. I kind of know that this lip here is going to have to be replaced, and as well this. So my first thought is basically get the outside of this deck lid the right shape and then start working on the inner bits. Welcome back to another episode of Coldstream Rod Shop. I'm Derek Fraser. In this week's video, we're going to be working on the doors for the 32.5 window coupe. The stuff on the doors is basically a little more cosmetic. I think there's just one small corner here I've got to fix a little sheet metal on and maybe dolly out or pressure out or whatever. But these are pretty exceptional original steel 5-window doors. So the little sheet metal, I want to get the latching mechanisms working so that it opens and shuts. And then also if there's any issues with excessive or too close a door gap all the way around, I need to fix that up so there's both doors on each side. But right now what I'm going to do is I am going to fill in that gap on that door. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to use, I'll try and show you here. I got 1/8 rod here. So what I'll be doing is I'll be welding that 1/8 rod to the edge of the door to basically make that gap look more symmetrical and even all the way around. Here's the driver's door done. The gaps have been adjusted along the leading edge here. I had to add material in, as you can see from the time lapse. I've got that all dressed out. Really wasn't anything to do along the bottom except for there was a small patch in the bottom left hand corner. I had to weld that up. Project is actually coming close to an end. The scope of the project has changed a little bit. The owner has decided that he wants the car back in this metal condition with all the wood back into it. All of the wood inside around the windows, I've got to pull that out. There's a couple pieces of wood I have to replace, and then install all of the wood that we made on them quite a few episodes ago. When we did the Moncton Coupe, we made a full set of wood for the top, and wood that goes above the doors, and then wood for the back window. The only one we didn't do is the ones around these quarters, but I've done those before, so we'll get working on that. Now, the camera lady wants to come over here. What I was asked to do, the areas where the wood goes, which is going to be covered over, because I'm going to be putting the wood in before this goes back to the customer. I was asked to put a coat of POR 15 over the areas that are going to be covered up by the wood. Anywhere where there was basically welds or whatever, I put seam sealer on the welds so everything's sealed on the inside. So here we are in the shop. I made up new pieces for the rear window wood. It was only the bottom piece that really needed to be replaced. The bottom pieces had a lot of dry rot along the bottom, so they really structurally weren't sound anymore. They were quite brittle, so they were replaced. This piece and across the top was very sound. Basically hit it with the dual action sander and took the oxide layer off of it and basically put a clear coat over the whole thing. These rear window woods were put together with dowels, as I mentioned before, versus when we did the Moncton Coupe, that wood was put together with screws. So obviously there was a change in 1932. Don't know which was first, but at one point they did it with dowels, and another point they put it together with screws. Nevertheless, has the same effect. We put these back together the way that they were with the dowels. You can see them here. So those are ready to go back into the car. Over here, I've put a clear coat on the top bows. There's 3 of them, and a clear coat on the wood above the doors. You can watch how I made these in a previous episode. We'll put a link at the end of the video. When we did the Moncton Coupe, we actually made up 2 sets of wood so that we could have something to put on the New York Coupe that we're doing now. There is the top wood, top roof wood, sorry about that. Have a single, well actually 2 coats of exterior grade urethane on that now. So that will be ready to go in the car here shortly. I still have to cut the tenons on the top of the rear window wood. So here is the original. You can see there how there's a tenon on it. And as I mentioned before, I made these pieces up so that I could put them together one way or the other. So again, there was a difference in the way the rear window wood was put together. In the Moncton Coupe, that was basically a lap joint with a screw. In this particular case, it's a mortise and tenon joint with a screw going through it. So I'm going to duplicate the way that this one was put together. Anyways, watch along. I'll be putting this in the car here shortly. I'll show you how it goes in. From the time-lapse video, you can see me putting the roof wood in place. I now have the roof bows in place as well. If the camera lady wants to come inside here, we'll do a little bit of a tour of all the different pieces of wood and brackets and stuff that we put in place. We've pretty much completed everything that the owner wanted us to do. So it's really kind of at the end of the project. I mean, there'll be another video of us, putting it on the dolly and loading it up and sending it on its way and doing kind of a recap of everything we've done to it. To be honest with you, I'm kind of a little bit sad to see it go, because it's been here for a long time and kind of been a big part of our lives, working on this, having fun, answering people's comments and talking about it and that. But there's more projects to come. There's a few more people that have asked me to do some work on the chassis. We've got the 40 Plymouth, which is going to start working, and then right beside the camera lady, there's the 32 Ford Roadster. That's our project, so there's lots of stuff to do on that. And then, as we introduced there a week or two ago, there's a 32 sedan and an original 32 Roadster body that we've been asked to put together. So there's lots and lots and lots of stuff for us to work on and share with you. So hopefully you enjoyed that video, kind of the conclusion of the 32 New York Coupe. Please like, share, tag, and subscribe. Please send us your comments, and I'll see you next week. Take care. Anyway, off she goes, back to her owner, and that's the end of that one. Everybody take care.